listening to the Punisher Waterfowls, the Union 0430 podcast. Brought to you by Real Geese Decoys, the most technological advanced silhouette decoys on the market. And Vortex Canada, the force of optics.
Hey everybody, it is episode number 90. Amazing that we've hit another milestone, episode 90, and this is a special one because it's our best friend. We just met him. Dave and him have been doing karate in the garage, and they are best buds. Welcome, Logan Williamson, coming to us from Ketchum, Idaho, the Waterfowl Category Manager with First Lite. And you know, it hasn't even been a week since we last hung out. So
not at all.
Thanks
for having me, guys.
Yeah, this is awesome. Like Dave, we've had friends on the show, but we haven't had a ton of friends on the show. But now we can say, you know, we got this big, beautiful man from Idaho on the show with us, and we're buds. No big deal. We're buds.
Without a doubt.
And he's like the first American that we've all hunted with together.
That's
him
right.
And Kevin, right? Like,
actually, you know what? I don't know if you heard me when I said this, Logan, when we were in the blind the first day. That was the first time Dave and I have hunted together.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. So usually Dave and I, when we go places, we separate, right? We split up, and
Sure.
Like Dave will go with some people and I'll go with some people. But Dave and I have never, ever shared a blind together. We're always separated. So this was the first time that Dave and I hunted together too, was with you and Kevin.
Well, you know, from the banter from one end of the blind to the other, I would never have guessed that was your first time sharing a blind together.
There was some good banter going on. There's so many jokes and so many things that was said during those 3 days that it's going to be extremely hard to try and fit them all in, but I'm going to try my best. I'm going to drop them here and there, and everybody that's watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast streaming device, you should be able to pick up a chuckle here or there. But I am really excited, and Dave's really excited to have you on, Logan, because not only are we excited to have you on, and we were excited to hunt with you, but something that we're really, really proud of is that we are the first people and the only people in Canada that's had their hands on the new Typha camo pattern coming from, and the waterfowl gear that's coming from First Lite in July. So it's a little feather in our hat. We're pretty proud of it and pretty excited. And I'm not going to lie, we've been bragging about it a fair bit too.
and to be fair, that Typha gear, Logan, I'm going to admit something here. When I first saw the Typha, the camo pattern, I was like, I don't know if I like it. I didn't know at first. And then I realized that it's not a camo pattern for the human eye, because when we hunted, we were hunting in like, I don't know, how long was that blind? Like 16 feet. Like it was huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was 8 guys in that blind, and the one end of the blind, there was a lot of like greenery, and if someone stood by the greenery, the Typha the green popped out. But then like there's a picture of our mid-morning nap, and like we're laying in the long tall yellow grass, and we kind of blended in with that. And then there's a picture like kind of standing near a mud pit, and like the browns kind of came out, and I was very intrigued. Like, how long did it take you guys to develop this camo pattern, and what was that process like? Because that stuff is amazing.
Oh, shoot. Well, let me say we're probably more excited to have you guys wear testing the gear up there north of the border now more than anyone. I was just saying to someone the other day how important it is just to make sure that we have such a wide and diverse range of wear testers in all different parts of North America, in all different environments, doing it the way that they do it, just because, you know, we don't know everything about waterfowl. Like every waterfowler knows how to do things their way, in their waters, or in their fields, right? And everyone does it just a little bit differently all over, North America. And that's not to say that one way is better than the other. In fact, there's a lot of things that you learn just from hunting with people in different places that you can take back and apply to your own setups and what you're doing. So just to get you guys in the gear and hear that positive feedback from you, is really encouraging and just another box checked for us, especially as we look to not only bring this stuff to market this year, but also as we look towards the future and developing new product. And that's why getting in the field with you guys is just so important, having that hands-on time in the field. But to come back to your original question just about Typha Camo. So Typha is the name of our new waterfowl pattern. And it's named after the genus of, wetland vegetation, better known, or most commonly known as cattails. And that's something that you see in waterfowl, both marsh, largely marsh habitat as well. But if you look at a lot of the tones, textures, and shapes that are consistent with that environment, it's also very consistent in field environments like we were hunting. And that's why, when you do look at us in a couple different environments, all within the same range of style of hunting and environment, whether you're in an ag field or in a marsh, it really works very well in both scenarios. And it's not just the environment you're in, but the type of light that you're in too for those times of year as well. The light is a lot different. It's very blue in the summer and the spring, and it starts to get more red during the later months. Until finally it turns blue again in the winter. And it's just balancing. It's a balancing act. And to better answer your question, we went through 12 rounds of design and 6 different rounds of color variation to get that sucker dialed in. And you got to give a shout out to both Mia Ward, our camo developer, and Ross Copperman, who is the chief commercialization officer at Meat Eater, but has largely been at the forefront of the First Lite organization forever since its inception. But Ross just kept pushing us to keep dialing it in, and it was like, seemingly he was never happy, and God bless him. I can't thank him enough, because he kept pushing us to this place where, it became so fine tuned for all the environments that we were looking at, for all the different lights that you could be in throughout the day. And we ended up in a place that could not be better, and that I couldn't be more happy with. And especially after having now, a couple seasons under our belt in the field with it, it's just even more affirmation for us, especially to hear that it resonated so well with you guys as well up there.
Well, Dave sort of touched on it, and he gave you, before we hit the record button, right? Like, I received all the gear came to my place. I'm opening it all up and I'm shooting pictures to Dave. I'm like, we got this is what they sent and all this stuff. And Dave is like, okay, I want you to check this and see, did they do this? And I'm like, yep, that's done. He was like, okay, good. And then he had a laundry list of things that he was asking me. He was like, okay, check these pants. Tell me if this is done. And I'm like, yep, check. Yep, it's good. Yep, that's exact. So everything that, Dave and as a waterfowler that we look, and I get it, there's some gimmicky stuff that's out there, but you guys never even touched none of that gimmicky stuff, which Dave brought up, right? It is a bare bone, it's waterfowler's gear, and the Typha, Dave, like you said, it's one of those things. I think you really need to see it in your hands to see and just understand just how good the camo pattern is. Because, like, if anybody's watching right now and they're looking at this shirt that I'm wearing, they're like, yeah, okay, I see it. But the video doesn't do it justice. That's it doesn't come through on pictures and on video the way that it did when we were out in the field. And you're looking like it's like it's constantly changing depending on what your background or the environment that you're in, and which is really impressive, because and I'm sure there's a whole ton of technology and thought process that went into this that's way beyond our ability, but it's adaptive. That was the word I was looking for. It's adaptive camouflage.
That's a good word to describe it. And actually it's not that crazy rocket science when you break it down. And it's kind of, we sort of have I don't want to call it cookie cutter, but we sort of have a formula, and not sort of, like we have a formula for building camo, and it's really it's a balance of macro breakup elements and micro breakup elements. So when you are 100 yards away from someone who's wearing this camo, what does it look like? And what happens with a lot of camos is that they're too dark, and there is too much micro breakup and not enough macro. So when you start to view the pattern at a distance, they turn into a blob, and all of a sudden they're silhouetted. You can see their silhouette. They turn into a dark blob. And if you've listened to any goose guide worth his salt, he's constantly yelling at people to cover up their holes, because you see dark masses. You see these dark holes in the blind, in the hide. And so Typha, we used a light ground. And so we went with the lightest cattail, the lightest tan that you're going to find in the marsh. And then we took some big, large shape breakups, and we actually created those shapes using sort of those grassy textures and overtones. And what happens is, when all of a sudden, when you step away from one of those grass clusters rather, at 50 or 75 yards, you're no longer seeing the individual blades of grass, but what you are seeing is now a larger shape that still has breakup around it because of all the lightness that is around it. So again, it's just balancing the big shapes that you're going to see and that are going to maintain breakup at a longer distance, with the fine tune and the micro breakup textures, those little smatterings of mud, the actual definition in the grass blades, that when the birds are circling overhead and they're starting to get closer and closer, it's just maintaining that breakup and that concealment, the whole way that the birds are working.
So is it fair to say that in a normal year, people that know First Lite know that you guys have like a year, every year you kind of come out with your new releases around springtime, right? And last year when you came out with the Spectre pattern, you had that whitetail line, and it only came in the Spectre. Is the plan to have gear that's just Typha, that's only the new waterfowl gear, or is it going to be like taking some Catalyst and putting Typha on it? Like,
that's a great question, actually, Dave. Obviously First Lite got into waterfowl because it was kind of an easy step. Waterfowlers everywhere were already using our foundational hunt product in blinds, across North America. So our merino wool specifically, like, that's probably the biggest leg that we have to stand on. Merino wool was built for waterfowlers. Not only is it still going to smell okay after 4 days in a duck camp wearing the same hoodie, but it's also going to keep you, it's going to retain 80% of its warmth even when it's wet. And there's a couple different chemical reactions that happen to actually release that extra heat, but it's absolutely wild stuff. And it's some of the oldest tech known to man, right? It's not like this stuff had to be re-engineered in a lab. This has been tried and true for hundreds and thousands of years. And so that's our big stepping point. And our merino is exceptional. We have it blended with just the right amount of nylon, just the right enough elastane to keep it very stable and durable, and but at the same time, keep you extremely, extremely warm while reaping all those benefits of the natural merino wool.
And this isn't like merino wool isn't just your normal wool. Like, it's not itchy. It's not. Right. It doesn't smell like that stuff that my grandfather would have used back in the day. Like, you put that sock on and you're wanting to itch your foot right off, right? Like,
sure,
it's not the same stuff, right?
It is and it isn't, right? So it happens to be the level of refinement that you're looking for, and the way that wool is sold and produced is measured in microns. And so the smaller the micron count of your merino wool, the finer the fibers, and so it's going to be a softer. And so for our base layer, we use a pretty low micron I think if I'm saying that right. Yeah, we use a pretty low micron, a very fine fiber, which is extremely comfortable and very, very soft. It still dries very fast. And then again, just there's been a lot, not just with our wool, but in the world of merino wool. You think it's Smart Wool and some of the great things that they've done in moving wool forward in the market over the last, decade or two, really. Just the refinement process is taken that sheep scent out of the process a little bit more. But honestly, wool, just like anything else, it has its care, right? You need to take care of it. You need to cold wash it, hang dry or dryer on low. Just like your favorite sweater, you don't want to toss it in the dryer on high or wash it on high or be aggressive with it. However, something that I feel that First Lite has done exceptionally well is that blend and finding that, making sure that your content of wool is so high that you're still reaping all those natural benefits of the merino wool, but in the same breath, you're creating a stable fabric that isn't going to shrink, that's not going to fall apart, or if you leave it hanging on a hanger, it's not going to grow a tremendous amount and stretch all the way out too. So I think that that's something that we've really nailed down here at First Lite. It's one of our core competencies, something that we continue to do better and better year in and year out. And it gives us the perfect springboard really into this new category of waterfowl, because guys are already using our merino wool in blinds. And now, we're really excited to offer them not just some of our foundational hunt product, merino wool, and the Catalyst system being another great example of some of our awesome foundational First Lite product that we will offer in the Typha pattern. But then we also have a collection of purpose-built outerwear for the first time that will be purely waterfowl specific.
And that merino wool is that is the fabric for waterfowlers. And I think that hunt that we had there not long ago proves that. We had temperatures -7 all the way up to +7. We had freezing rain, we had snow, we had bright sunshine, we had just wet rain. And we only hunted for 2 days, and we didn't even get in a single boat, right? We weren't hunting over water, so I think that people need to start looking at this merino wool a little bit more closely and understanding the benefits of it. Well, especially in the kayak world, right?
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to bring up, Dave, and this is something that you've been preaching, and Logan, I don't know if you know, but Dave brought me onto First Lite, right? I wasn't using First Lite, and Dave was just, constantly at me. He's like, you got to try it. You got to take the plunge, try it. And the merino wool, I don't think anybody does a base layer better than First Lite. But the thing, so with First Lite's history of being a backcountry, climbing the mountains, doing 3 different climate changes as you're climbing, layering has been the backpackers system for years and years and years. But in the waterfowl world, it was get me the biggest, puffiest, heaviest waterproof jacket that you can find for December when I'm out on the big water and I'm chasing divers and stuff. And First Lite has got you've totally got rid of that line of thinking, because now with this merino wool, and Dave, you're 100% right, it is the waterfowler's fabric. You got your merino wool, and then you build from your base out. And like you said, Dave, we were in -7. All I wore was this hoodie. This hoodie, I had an insulating layer, and then I had that shell jacket. That's all I had. And -7 to +7, and rain and ice pellets, and it was all coming down, and it worked because it was layered. The gear is awesome, and layering. Sorry, Dave.
Oh no, I just want to point out that there was maybe someone in the blind beside me that wasn't wearing merino.
Yeah,
and he was feeling a little bit cold, and I almost had to cuddle him and warm him up. So
we had to fire up the Mr. Buddy heater for him.
Mr. Buddy heater, yeah, sitting there. He was a little dude too, right? I got a bit more insulation on myself, right? So
yeah, you and me both, buddy. You and me both.
So Logan, there's a bunch of stuff coming out, and something that people should be doing that are interested in waterfowl is looking at that duck lore show and really picking it apart. Like there might be something, say Steven Rilla's episode when he gets into the boat and kind of grabs something from the boat. I don't know, maybe there was something there that people should look at. That's what I'm most excited for. Like,
well, I will shamelessly plug Sean Weaver's show Duck Lore on YouTube over and over and over again. It is an awesome show, and also like you said, it's a great it's some great content for someone who is hungry to learn more about waterfowl, whether you guys who are, you know, ultra experienced and just, you know, want to hear how some other ultra experienced guys are doing it around the country or around the continent. But also, like you said, for beginners. I mean, honestly, I've learned so much, you know, from Sean. I consider myself a little bit of an outdoorsman, and I've learned so much from him just hanging out and getting to hunt together over the last year and a half. And his show is no different. It's completely indicative of that. All the little things that you get to learn about ducks and waterfowl and the migration, feeding habits, sleeping habits, nesting habits. I mean, it's all great stuff that, you know, guys like us on, you know, the podcast here love to nerd out about, and it's great intel. It also helps you realize and recognize how up and down the flyways, you know, we affect each other, right? I mean, the migration starts with you guys up north, whether it's legislature regulations, hunting patterns, hunter participation, you know, we're all working together really to preserve these flyways, to increase habitat, to increase hatch success and nest success. That you know, just learning about that stuff. Sean does a great job of framing that up and providing a platform for teaching, really. But again, and not just for beginners, but for anyone who's, you know, interested in learning or listening more about waterfowl.
Well, he does.
He also shows the realities of duck hunting. Like, it's not like listen, if you're offended by any comments I made, you probably should be, but I'm not pointing it at anybody, right? That's but like, he doesn't just show like the smasher hunts. Like, the reality is not every day you're going to get a limit, and you're still going to have fun, and you're still going to make memories. And that's what it's more about. Right. And you see some of these guys, like, they might not post for a couple of weeks because they didn't have a great hunt to post. Whereas Sean's show, like, you're seeing the ups and the downs, and just have fun with it. Go out. Just being out in the field is way better than sitting in your goddamn house playing iHunter or whatever the heck you're playing. So.
No kidding. And I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but the show doesn't show as much engine troubles as he had, nearly as funny as he had throughout the year. So there's even more troubles there to be shown, but absolutely it's authentic as it gets. And and if I'm being completely honest, like, that's what everyone is hungry for these days, and not just these days. It's right, and rightfully so, right? They want authentic content, and I think something that, you know, you gentlemen do, not to inflate your egos any more than we already have, but
you're pretty big already.
Extremely well is authentic to who you are, authentic to your regions, your style of hunting, and really just your culture, right? And it's that melting pot that really makes, you know, waterfowl and hunting camps in general is as great as they are, and as great as the one we had last week.
I think you
guys are. No, go ahead.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to just get away for a little bit, Logan, and I wanted to talk about it. And Dave, if I'm going totally off on a tangent, just shut me up. But I really wanted to. So this was one of the first times we've hung out with some industry people in the past and done things in the past and stuff, but it's been a very, you know, a very small period of time where a lot of business was discussed, because that was the purpose of it. It was a business meeting, and it felt like a business meeting. Do you know what I mean? But you know, you and Kevin show up, and we're asking you questions and stuff like that. To give, I guess what I'm getting at is this atmosphere that First Lite has as a company. Like, it is, I don't want to say it's not serious, because it's very serious. You're doing a huge company that's just massive, but the attitude of just having fun, making sure that you create the absolute best that you can create. And what, you know, when Dave said they want to come up to Canada because they want to see how it does up here. And I'm like, how many clothing, maybe, I don't know, but how many brands out there actually come up to Canada to test their stuff? Because we're not a huge market. But yet you guys come up, bring up a pile of gear. We put it through its paces as best we could in those 3 days. You know, it says a ton about the attitude and I guess the professionalism of the brand to want to ensure that it is the absolute best product being put out there for consumers.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure that we're not the first, but if you think, name a regional brand to you. Is there a regional grocery store, a regional gas station that you like to go to because they're regional? And if you see their brand and you're elsewhere, like you buy because you're familiar with that brand. I mean, honestly, that's how a lot of hunting and just outdoor brands in general have been. And you see it more and more these days, is that people want to buy local. They want to support the brands that they always support. If you look, and I want to speak to, you know, some of our competitors that have their roots down south, they have strong footholds in those markets. We started as a Western hunting mountaineering brand. Now, I say that with an asterisk because absolutely everyone in our office, there we go. That's the good stuff. You got enough to get her through the podcast?
Oh yeah.
But that honestly, that's the difference between us and some of the other established brands in the waterfowl space, is just that they have their roots regionally, right? And if we were to look at where our roots are regionally, even though, you know, we are spreading very fast and growing very, very fast across the country, you know, we started cutting our teeth in killing elk in the Rocky Mountains, right? And like that's where a lot of this performance was founded in. And so we can't ignore any region. Like as far as waterfowl goes, we don't have our stake in the ground yet. And so we need to make sure that we are building gear for guys that will work in absolutely every different scenario, every environment and every piece of the continent, just to make sure that we are truly checking that box of building the best gear. And whereas, you know, we eventually, you know, we will have very specific pieces that have very specific use cases. Right now, as we are really building our foundation, we want to make sure that we have you know, product that works for everyone, and it not just works for everyone, but it works at a very high level. You know, earlier you talked about our product not having a lot of you know, quote unquote gimmicks, and again, just to use the word foundation, you know, coming in as we start here, we have this strong foundation of merino wool, and, you know, to use cattle as an example, as very strong foundation, 2x4s to build. You know, we like to use that word internally, or that term internally. And now we have this opportunity to build purpose-built outerwear for waterfowl. But when we're investing in this stuff, because again, it's not cheap to manufacture, especially at the level of what we are making and the level of the product that we're making here. But the demands of the waterfowl are, and again, my two other category managers are probably going to kick me in the ass for saying this, but like the demands of the waterfowl are tough to meet. Oh, you guys do everything in these super wet, nasty conditions, and the wind is howling, and oh, but you know, you have to sit there for these extended periods of time, but you have to set you know, a 12 dozen set of decoys beforehand, you know, out in the field. Or if you're like last week, if you're you know, a snow goose hunter, a snow goose guide, you're going to set 1,000 decoys. So you had these periods, or you're dragging a sled in, or, you know, Dave, you're paddling into a spot. Like you have these moments of, you know, these very aerobic moments, yet then you're going to settle in and you're going to be there. And so just making sure that we We have all the boxes checked for all the hunters for every step of the way. And a lot of the features you'll see in the garments, in the accessories are all engineered to make sure that they are not only purpose built and purpose driven for waterfowlers, but they're versatile enough to be used for waterfowlers across the continent and however they hunt their waters or fields.
And now listen, I hope that the people at First Lite actually listen to this episode, because what I'm about to say is pretty serious, right? Logan and Kevin came up and they hunted with us, and they took seeing our ways of hunting and our culture and what we do so seriously that we went out for supper the one night, and they both ordered poutines with a bag of milk to drink and a fucking butter tart for dessert. And I'm going, you guys are gonna puke. Like, we don't even do that, and you guys just want to know the entire culture, right? It was pretty amazing. So I was pretty happy about that.
The whole bags of milk, like, if there was one thing that could, like, it was awesome. We tried out some awesome gear, made some awesome friendships, but it was absolutely mind-boggling that in the country of the United States of America, one of the most developed countries in the world, do not have milk in plastic bags. It is mind-boggling.
They're savages.
I know.
Like, what is it in, like a plastic or a rubber or like a cardboard?
Well, they walk around with gallons of it.
Let's not get started on this, because we have been raking our brains for a week, for 10 days, being like, okay, well, maybe they thought that this would be the better reason because of this. And every time we come back to like, no,
just a small 5-gallon bucket. We know 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah, we know exactly why, but we're not telling you because that's the secret, right? So
it's okay. It's going to keep us coming back for years. So you hold on to that one.
It's awesome.
Before we started this episode, getting back to being serious, before we started this episode, we kind of talked about, like, we got to see some of the new gear, and we're not supposed to fully talk about it all, but I want to know, what can you tell us about this Omen gear? Because it was announced on a podcast recently, and it's all the talk on these First Lite pages. Are you allowed to say anything?
Oh,
I know I'm kind of
the Omen or the Origin, because we've got actually both launching right now. They both sound similar. The Omen is actually going to be, for those of you listening, are going to be the fabric platform in the Omen jacket and pant, which is our Western big game, our new tip of spear product for Western big game. That'll be launching, and will the fabric package that we're using in there, the 4.5 layer, it's burly as hell and waterproof as all get out, is the basis, is the backbone and foundation for the majority of the new waterfowl line that we'll be launching for outerwear. The Origin hoodie, something we all got a chance to wear last week, is something that
Primo.
We actually got a chance to launch this week a little bit early ahead of schedule. Most of these days with supply chain woes, we're figuring out how late we can launch things just because it's all delayed. Mm-hmm. By a stroke of luck, all of our Origin hoodies showed up early, are now available on firstlite.com. Not yet in the Typha pattern. It'll launch collectively together with the rest of the assortment. But basically, it's a great all season level of fleece. It turns into a great mid layer, but it's also got a super durable, tough face to it. The face is peached, just meaning that it's been brushed, so it knocks down any of the sheen sometimes that you get with printed fabrics. And it's got a built-in face mask. Again, so waterfowlers, it's really easy to throw that. Again, it's a ninja hoodie. You throw that hood up, you pop the face mask up, and you completely disappear. So again, we talk about 2x4s is just great hunt product. That is actually a whitetail product that was then adopted by Western big game and waterfowl, and it's going to be a great piece for us moving forward. So super excited with that. With the Origin hoodie, we were excited we were able to get it to you guys, and that it was actually kind of the ideal piece for the all the weather we were seeing last week, layered up with the rest of the stuff.
And
the thing,
and another,
so with regards to the Omen, just for anybody that's wondering, if you're like me, and this is what I said to Logan before I had actually worn it, I was like, I am a huge fan of the Seek package, and the Omen is better than the Seek package. So for any of yous that are like me, that absolutely love the pants and the jacket from the Seek, you're going to be blown away by Omen. I just wanted to get that out there.
Well, I appreciate it, Damien. It's a good point because a lot, we talk about what you invest in when you're building gear. And it's just like building a house, right? Like you want to, you don't want to invest all your money into gold faucets, right? If your foundation is built on sand, and so this jacket is very, very feature rich. All of our stuff is very feature rich, as you can attest to. But at the same time, we started with the investment in the material package, in something that is going to be extremely waterproof and beyond durable, more durable than any product that we've made at First Lite before, which is awesome to say because we make some great gear. But in the same breath, for sheep hunters and for waterfowlers, the two things that are most important is weather/waterproof and two, durability, because you guys we're gonna put it through it. And so honestly, it just made perfect sense for us to collaborate on building this material package. It's this bomber 4.5 layer fabric that we'll be excited to talk about more in the coming months as we get ready to launch this stuff.
And I actually learned something pretty neat when you were talking about and I want to say the story myself, but just like in Tommy Boy, like I can stick my head up a bull's ass to get a good look at a T-bone steak, but I'd rather take the butcher's word for it, right? And this is where, Logan, can you explain what you were talking about, the fingers of the DWR and washing it? And because that was kind of neat to me, right?
That was one of the best blind conversations we had last week, was trying to describe DWR to you. But yeah, it's a great point. Any of your DWR products, not just rainwear, but basically the way DWR works, not quite on a molecular level, but
just to interrupt you, Logan, just for people that don't know, can you just talk about DWR, what it is, just so that people that don't know? Sorry.
So DWR stands for durable water repellent, and it's what is oftentimes it's a topical application on fabrics at the factory, the mill level. What happens is they run the material through rollers, and it rolls through a bath of the DWR liquid, and that's how it's applied topically, so that when you get rain, any moisture, in our case, spray from a boat or decoys, it's going to bead off. So any clothing that you own, everyone has DWR clothing in their closet, whether they recognize it or not, but anything that beads water has been treated with DWR. So that's that durable water repellent. And these days it can be applied a couple different ways. There are some new technologies that work kind of like powder coating, where they magnetically charge the DWR and it binds that way to the fabric. But the most common way is through a bath. And at a microscopic level, you have a bunch of these fingers almost coming up out of on top of the fabric, or standing up vertically from the fabric, and it actually supports the water droplets upwards. It supports those water molecules upwards and keeps them from sinking down and permeating that face fabric. Now, when those hairs become overwhelmed, or they become matted down because, let's just say, just sitting on your boat seat, right, or sitting on your blind stool, or some of those high wear areas, maybe in the shoulders where you had a decoy bag strapped over your back, it can start to lay those fibers down that like keep the water molecules out. So by washing and then drying, which is actually a critical part, washing and drying the material that is treated with the DWR will actually stand those hairs back up and sort of recharge your DWR. So whereas it's not important to like constantly wash your DWR treated materials, it's a really good idea to do it like once a year.
That's awesome. That's a good point. Just on the care of it. Yeah, go Dave.
So when you talk about drying it, do you mean like putting it on the clothesline, or?
Nope, in an actual dryer. Yeah, because it's actually
On low heat or?
Yeah, on low heat, you don't. In fact, none of your hunting gear you want to do on high heat. But yeah, on low heat in a dryer is absolutely fine. But it's actually it's that static electricity that is actually going to activate to stand those fibers back up, and the washing gets rid of contaminants, including our own sweat and skin oils from the inside. And we could talk for a long time and go down a deep rabbit hole. I'm not sure you guys want to, but it's one of the reasons that our 4.5 layer fabric package is engineered the way that it is, because that first layer and a half on the inside is actually meant to absorb and hold your body sweat and those body oils that could otherwise compromise the waterproof membrane in between some of those fabrics. So especially in your waterproof garments, it's important to wash and dry them.
On that note, because that was very scientific, I really want to draw some attention to that sexy hat that Logan is wearing. And
back up on the website.
They are back up on the website, but most importantly is that Logan's rocking that hat today at work, and people are telling him that's a badass logo, and that is amazing.
Well, one of our designer developers framed it up best for me today. And he's a hip dude. He's got a nose ring. He knows what's cool. But he was like, dude, he said, that's cool. That's cooler than shit. He's like, it's like the Mighty Ducks version of, it's a waterfowl version of the Mighty Ducks logo, which couldn't be more accurate or badass or more indicative to what you guys stand for up there in Canada. It was so funny to Kevin, which I don't know why it was so funny, because he grew up in Minnesota, so hockey was a way of life for him, even if he didn't play hockey. But we were in our hotel room that night before we went hunting with you guys, and I think he flipped through 7 channels in a row, and each of them had a different hockey game on, and he was like, what is this? But here we are. So that's why I said, I mean, culturally, it's recognizable. It's just a very, very good logo for you guys. So do me a favor, and brands love to like rebrand these days, but if you guys could just keep this logo forever, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
You know what that logo would look good on? A Typha hat. A
Typha hat.
Well, you know what? I know someone, and maybe we can make that happen.
That'd be
And by maybe I mean for a couple butter tarts, we could see we could really.
That's our national treasure, right? Like some maple syrups and
throw in some of those ketchup chips.
Oh yeah,
you know what?
Chips.
Yeah,
but
so I bought them ketchup chips and Smarties.
Yeah.
And Kevin bought maple syrup to bring home for his girlfriend at the right. Yeah. And I was like, I get home, I'm cleaning out the truck. What's in the back seat? The maple syrups.
I gave Kevin, I don't know if I gave any to you, Logan, but I gave him all dressed chips. I was like, you got to try these. He was not impressed with the all dressed chips.
Which is interesting though, because I actually feel that the ketchup chips are all dressed chips, but with sugar and less vinegar. I don't even think they're that different. I don't. That's my opinion as an American. I know, like let the record show I am a Yankee. I don't know what I'm talking about, but being a newcomer to ketchup chips, I love the ketchup chips. I love the all dressed chips. To be honest with you, both the chips were. Also, my first couple of ketchup chips, I was like, I don't know how I feel about those. And I actually, in the back of Dave's truck, I like rolled them up and set them aside. And like 10 minutes later, I opened them back up, and then they were gone.
That's awesome.
Logan's
not a very big dude, but man, that boy can pack down the treats.
Well, he's like 7 foot tall. That was the thing. Like Kevin walked into my room the first thing. I was like, Jesus, you're tall. And then I'm talking to Kevin for a bit, and he's telling me, the boys are over in this room. They're looking at some stuff. So I was like, okay, I'll go over. So Kevin and I walk over, and I see Logan. I'm like, Jesus, another tall dude.
Yeah. Just a couple of Midwestern tall drinks of water.
Yeah. Like Dave is tall. Like Dave, you're over 6 foot, I'm almost 6 foot, and you guys like tower over us. I don't know. You know what? You know what? No, their milk isn't in plastic bags. That's what
it's what it boils down to, because I can tell you, Kevin being from Minnesota and me being from Michigan, we certainly drank enough milk growing up. To tell you that you will grow taller if you drink it out of a plastic jug rather than a plastic bag.
A gallon jug at that.
Gallon jug at that.
Yeah. A small 5-gallon bucket.
So Logan, what's your favorite thing to hunt? What do you like hunting? Like, we talked a lot about elk, and I think that's more because me being the waterfowl hunter with the no elk experience, I kept asking you about it. But when you go out to hunt, what's your favorite thing?
Gosh,
it's
hard.
Elk is a fine answer.
It's not elk. I'll tell you that. I do love hunting elk. I will say that I went skydiving a couple of years ago, and it was right after I had shot my first elk. I shot a real dandy of a bull with my father. My dad called it in, and this thing almost ran me over. I mean, I killed this thing at about 9 yards away as it was like coming right down the trail at me, and it was so incredible. And then I went skydiving with friends months later, and it was my first time, and my instructor, the guy I was strapped to, was real nervous, just because we were going up in the plane, and I wasn't saying anything. I was very quiet, and finally he just couldn't hold it anymore. He was like, "Hey, are you okay?" And he was yelling in my ear. It's usually the quiet ones we have to worry about freaking out and doing something at the door. And over the roar of the engine, I yelled at him. I was like, "No, I went elk hunting last year." Like, this isn't even close to the adrenaline rush that I was getting. And I don't think it really hit home with him. Just, him being a Virginia boy, my instructor, but in the same breath, I mean, it's a rush like no other. And I try not to, because I've been asked this a lot of times. I've just growing up in a hunting family, and then, working in the hunting industry for as long as I have, I've had the opportunity to chase a lot of critters, and it's hard to say that one is better than another or what my favorite is, just because they're all so different, right? It's like, it's trying to compare things that aren't even comparable. I think that, I grew up largely whitetail and turkey hunting, being from Michigan. The first thing I ever shot was a mallard duck, actually, though. And that was cool and stuck with me. But again, growing up in the Midwest, being heavily involved in sports, like, you have to make some choices about what you're going to focus on. But when in my early 20s, I moved to Maryland, and what had been just a casual pursuit of mine in ducks and geese quickly became it's a culture there in Maryland of hunting ducks and geese. And so I being able to immerse myself in that culture, and it was just something we were doing all the time. I absolutely fell in love, with waterfowl. And not that I didn't love waterfowling before, but I just hadn't been afforded the opportunity to do it on a frequent basis that I had. And especially in a place like Maryland, where, you can go hunt geese and divers and mallards. There's puddle ducks. There's, black ducks. There's canvasbacks. I mean, that Atlantic flyway is really impressive in seeing all those things. And so it just afforded me the opportunity to really get into it like I hadn't before. And really that's kind of what catapulted me to this new position at First Lite, which, I'm finally happy to say, that I'm the category manager. The last 2 years I've been working under the alias as innovation manager, which actually, if you think about it, it sounds kind of like a demotion. Like, innovation manager sounds super fancy, and now I'm just a waterfowl manager. And so, but no, it's been a great journey here with First Lite. These guys are completely committed to just like building not only the best gear, but also the best community around it. And Kevin's done a great job, obviously, with you damn Canucks that we spent the last week with up in a blind. Love you guys to death. And so, it's about product and it's about community. And those are the two things that we continue to build. And for me, it was really that move to Maryland that really, pushed me into waterfowl. But You know, to come back to your original question of what my favorite thing to hunt is, I think on my, you know, my company bio that we all have to fill out, I think I self-identified as a turkey hunter, which isn't even an official category that we offer at First Lite. But you know, these days I'm completely committed to spending more time in the blind. And honestly, it's, you know, you think about Western big game, and you know, it largely Western big game is a group effort as well. You know, whitetail is definitely more of a solitary thing, right? And you're 20 feet up, and you know, I wouldn't trade anything for those 20 feet up in a tree stand. But it's just so, they're all so different. It's something I love about waterfowling more than anything, and why it doesn't compare to any other pursuit for me is because it's inclusive and social. It's literally all of my favorite things. You're in the blind with your boys, you're cracking jokes, you don't have to be super quiet, you didn't have to pull all of your gear out of scent proof bags in the morning, like there's dogs there, right? Like it's just like, it's all the favorite things. Like sometimes there's someone there cooking breakfast in the blind, right? Like it's so much different than every other style of hunting, and it is very inclusive, which is something that we at First Lite very much stand for, is inclusion. And you know, it's so awesome to be able to share a blind and build those relationships with people. I'm not saying that you don't build those relationships in other camps or in other pursuits, but it's just different in waterfowl, and it's one of the reasons that, you know, that I absolutely love it, and that it's, you know, definitely the focal point of my life right now.
And there's something to be said about the camaraderie. You can, like, you and I could have talked for 2 weeks before that and whatever, but then the second you're spending a 12-hour day in the blind, it just changes. And now it's like we're doing karate in each other's garages and shit, right? Like,
well, I tell you, I think Kevin said it best. He, you know, you just, when we were on our way back, you know, because we didn't shoot a ton of snows on our hunt, right? Like it was just, they seemingly wanted to fly. We saw a bunch, so they seemingly wanted to just fly right over us and dump into the St. Lawrence. But, you know, that's where you really get to learn a lot about people. And again, I'm going to do everything I can not to overinflate these big egos of yours, but you know, we really got to learn you guys, and you don't get to do that in a ton of other pursuits. You don't get to know someone like that. And if the deer aren't moving and you're, you know, it's November 2nd and you're just in the wrong spot in a tree stand, like, I hope you got some good games on your phone, and I hope you got service, because like that's going to be your solace. Whereas if you know, a bad day or a slow day in, you know, the goose blind, you're laughing so hard that your abs are sore the next morning. Like it's just it's a whole different dynamic, right? And so you know, the old adage is, you know, oh, a bad day fishing is better than a good day in the office. Well, I'll tell you, a bad day waterfowling is 10 times better than, you know, a bad day big game hunting or whitetail hunting. And I say that from a lot of experience.
Yeah, for sure. Fellas, we're getting close to that 60-minute mark, and as usual, I'm pretty sure we could keep this going for a lot longer. But we didn't get, so for anybody that's listening, you know, there's a reason why we didn't get into too much with the new gear that's coming. Because listen, we're trying to build some suspense here, and we want you guys to listen to us, hear the things that we're saying, and then follow First Lite, because there are tidbits, there are hints out there. You just got to be looking in the right place. And David mentioned, if you go look at duck lore, you'll see it. If you follow our social media, you'll see a couple pieces of kit. We won't tell you what the names of those are, but you'll see us wearing them. And same with the First Lite website. Like there's pictures on the First Lite website when you go look. And the beauty thing is that if you go to the First Lite website, you can actually sign up for the newsletter to be updated on what's going on with the waterfowl lineup. So listen, for those of you that do know Dave and I, you know that this isn't something that we haphazardly do. And we are 100% standing behind this waterfowl lineup, just on the half dozen items that we've seen. And the thing that blows me away, and I said this before we started recording, is that there's items that's being tested right now for 2025 release, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me. And I love it. So listen, everybody, get on your socials, get on and start searching for this stuff, because I promise you, in July, you are going to want to own every piece of this stuff. And I promise you that you're going to want to own it, because not only does it work, but it's functional. And that is, as a waterfowler, you know that it comes down to function. And trust me, it is functional. Fellas, we are close. Yeah.
I just got one more question. So
Yeah.
Logan, when you guys, okay, we've already mentioned the name Omen, right? So take the Omen jacket.
Yeah.
Do you guys have like a continued production run of it, or is it like a certain amount for the season, like for the year? Because a lot of people are like, they're talking right now about how things are sold out on the website and when are they coming back?
That's
Can
a
you
good
talk
question.
a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good question. Generally, you know, we order twice a year, or a couple times a year. Honestly, we have the flexibility to do whatever we want, you know, for efficiency's sake. You know, we try to limit our factory buys to a couple times a year, and we you know, your sales and people's sales are so important to us, and we track those, you know, daily to the second, just to make sure that we're buying enough for, you know, what demand is out there for the product. And you know, sometimes we sell out, but it's a terrible problem to have, because in one breath you're very happy that you sold out of your product, and then on the other hand, it's you know, like, did we leave anything on the table? Are there people out there that want this, that can't get it? And so we'll be launching stuff. We have an incredible new planning team and inventory planning division at First Lite that are going to keep things in stock year round for you guys, as long as you need it. Be looking around July. Keep your eyes peeled for the First Lite website for the launch of the full waterfowl collection. Go to firstlite.com/pages/waterfowl and enter email address in, just to stay up to date on all of our launches and all the updates we have coming with new product. Again, we're looking for a July launch there to have everything ready for you guys and ready for the market. So stay up to date at firstlite.com/pages/waterfowl, and otherwise continue to consume all of our awesome meat eater content, especially duck lore. Glad to hear you guys are a fan of that, because it is a great show that's on YouTube. And overall, if you were thinking of waiting to buy something for this upcoming waterfowl season, hold your dollars for just a little bit longer. Wait till July. We have some awesome stuff coming. And if this podcast was anything indicative of what's to come, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great.
I think, Dave, that Logan should come back like as it releases and give everybody.
Oh, I would love that.
You know, I would like to point out that we say that a lot, and everyone's always like, yeah, we'll hunt together. But Kevin so far has been one of the first people to keep his word on that. Right? Like that's big.
It is. It's huge.
I'm not saying that we're going to hold Logan to it as well.
I'm totally holding him to it.
Well, you should.
Because I started putting the bug in his ear too about this. I would absolutely love. I'm not a huge big game hunter. I grew up hunting moose, but that was it. But I am
the
totally
biggest of the big game.
I know, but like in Newfoundland, we don't hunt. It's there's a moose. Shoot.
All right. Okay. Let's pump the brakes there a little bit.
You know what I mean?
Give your homeboys a little bit more credit.
So I am totally taking Kevin and Logan. I am going to hound the two of them to get me on a bull elk. 100%. I'm totally going to do it. Kevin did come hunt with us. We are going to go and hunt with Logan. He may not realize it yet, but but we're coming. We may just knock on the
We
door.
realize it, and we're ready, and we're ready for it. We're mentally preparing ourselves. We're pre-hydrating for the experience, drinking a lot of water, IV fluids. We're getting
Doing your
ready for you
sit-ups so your
guys.
stomach doesn't hurt from laughing.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know if any amount of sit-ups would be able to prepare myself for the amount of laughter that happened in the blind last week, but I'm okay with that.
Some of the laughter, ladies and gentlemen, we really can't talk about, like jellyfish and stuff like that. So,
Or all of it. Most of it. Actually, 98% of it.
But if someone at the First Lite office wants to know, hit us up. Hit us up. Just saying.
We can tell you all kinds of stories.
We'll tell you the real stories, boys and girls.
How about you guys get yourselves out here and you can tell them in person?
Yeah. That's a goal, buddy. That's a goal of ours for sure. We will go around. I'll give you the last word, Logan. Dave, anything else you want for Logan, buddy, or anything else you want to say?
No, man, Logan, it was awesome to meet you. And it's like, it's one of those things, you never know what's going to happen. And then you meet the guy and it's like, the minute you shake hands, you know that this guy is going to be a lifetime friend. So I'm glad we met you and Kevin, and fuck, I can't wait to see you boys again.
Very true. Go for
it. Cheers to both of you guys. We cannot thank you guys enough for hosting us last week and showing how you guys do things in your neck of the woods. All the product feedback, good and bad. And honestly, it's the constructive stuff that I'm most interested in, even though it's a good pat on the back to hear that you guys love stuff. But honestly, we're always striving to be better and do things better. And, Damien, you spoke to earlier of us always working in future seasons and always to work to improve things. We're really happy that, we can do you guys right by this initial launch of our product, and that, you guys, as well as your entire viewership and everyone, we encourage you guys to leave comments, to leave feedback. Us at First Lite and Meter, we leave plenty of opportunities and places for you to do so. And we want to hear, just like, Kevin and I loved hearing from you guys this week about what your thoughts were on the gear. We want to hear from everyone, just to bring it full circle to what I said earlier in the podcast. One of our greatest advantages is harnessing feedback from all over the continent to really make the best gear going forward. And honestly, that was why, our experience with y'all last week was so great. So until next time, boys.
Dave. They like us. They really like us. Ladies and gentlemen, this was episode 90. As we say all the time, we're not experts. We merely are a bunch of friends that absolutely love one another's company. We love talking about gear, love talking about anything waterfowl. And this community, this small community of waterfowl hunters in North America, it is something that is truly remarkable. And please reach out to people, travel different places, educate yourself, and try and get your head wrapped around all the different waterfowling aspects that there is. Follow us, keep following us. There will be more stuff coming out with the First Lite. We will keep throwing out some hints and giving you anything. And if you have any questions, send them to Dave and I. We'll get them to Logan. We'll get them to Kevin, and we'll get you the answers that you're looking for. Everybody, this is episode 90. As always, big love. Until next time.